Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Punjabi Hari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama Rama, Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jaya Mr. Pad Paramahansa Purikacharya Ashtotar the Shri Srimad the Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Purikacharya Ashtotar the Shri Srimad the Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. So let's see what's this. So how far do we get? 15 I did. Okay. We're doing text 16 on page 609. Chapter 15. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 5th day of October 2021 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in Chapter 15, the Yoga of the Supreme Person, text 16 on page 609. Dvav imau purushau loke charas chakshara evacha sharak sarvani bhutani kutasto akshara uchyate. Okay, before I chant the verse, Michelle, can you just move over one question? Sorry, keep some separation here. Thanks. Dvavimau purushau loke charas chakshara evacha tarak sarvani bhutani kutasto chara uchyate. Dvavimau purushau loke charas chakshara evacha charak sarvani bhutani kutasto chara uchyate. Dvavimau purushau loke charas chakshara evacha charak sarvani bhutani kutasto chara uchyate. Go ahead, Dimitri. Dvavimau purushau loke charas chakshara evacha charak sarvani bhutani kutasto chara uchyate. Tyler. Dvavimau purushau loke charas chakshara evacha charak sarvani bhutani kutasto chara uchyate. You want to try it, Daniel? Dvavimau purushau loke. No, this word is charash. Charas chakshara evacha charak sarvani bhutani kutasto chara uchyate. All right, you're trying. Keep trying. Krishna will give you a chance. Go ahead, Saul. All right, we'll work on it. Michelle, you want to try? Dvavimau purushau loke charas chakshara evacha charak sarvani bhutani kutasto chara uchyate. Jessica, you there?
I am. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
You want to try?
Dvavimau purushau loke
Dvavimau purushau loke
charas chakshara evacha
charas chakshara evacha
charak sarvani bhutani
charak sarvani bhutani
kutasto chara uchyate.
kutasto chara uchyate. Is there any way you can like grab one of the seats and sit on this side? Because this is the ladies. Oh, we have a seat with a book and everything. All right. Anyway, tell him when he gets. Right over here. Yeah, we got a book here for you and everything. Yeah, right over here. Yeah, you're good. We're good. All right, I'll read the word by words. Vow to and show him what page you're on. Dvau to imau, these, purushau, living entities, loke, in the world, charak, fallible, cha, and aksharaha, infallible, eva, certainly, cha, and Sharaha, fallible, Sarvani, all, Bhutani, living entities, Kutastaha, in oneness, Akshara, infallible, Uchate, is said. Translation: there are two classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every living entity is fallible, and in the spiritual world, every living entity is called infallible. Purport: as already explained, the Lord in his incarnation as Vyasadeva compiled the Vedanta Sutra. Here the Lord is giving, in summary, the contents of the Vedanta Sutra. He says that the living entities, who are innumerable, can be divided into two classes, the fallible and the infallible. The living entities are eternally separated parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When they are in contact with the material world, they are called Jiva Bhuta. And the Sanskrit words given here, Chara Sarvani Bhutani, mean that they are fallible. Those who are in oneness with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, are called infallible. Oneness does not mean that they have no individuality, but that there is no disunity. They are all agreeable to the purpose of the creation. Of course, in the spiritual world there is no such thing as creation, but since the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as stated in the Vedanta Sutra, is the source of all emanations, that conception is explained. According to the statement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krsna, there are two classes of living entities. The Vedas give evidence of this, so there is no doubt about it. The living entities who are struggling in this world with the mind and the five senses have their material bodies, which are changing. As long as a living entity is conditioned, his body changes due to contact with matter. Matter is changing, so the living entity appears to be changing. But in the spiritual world, the body is not made of matter. Therefore, there is no change. In the material world, the living entity undergoes 6 changes: birth, growth, duration, reproduction, then dwindling and vanishing. These are the changes of the material body. But in the spiritual world, the body does not change. There is no old age, there is no birth, there is no death. There all exists in oneness. Charak Sarvani Bhutani. Any living entity who has come in contact with matter, beginning from the first created being, Brahma, down to a small ant, is changing its body. Therefore, they are all fallible. In the spiritual world, however, they are always liberated in oneness. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Shri Parampara. Dimitri, you know how these lights work. Just for my peace of mind, see if they're up all the way. Okay. So, this fallible and infallible. It's important to understand what Prabhupada means by that. Libby, we got this door open? I don't know. That's, just leave it. Yeah, I was right. Up all the way, right? There wasn't up all the way. Okay. Now I can see a little better. Okay, so fallible and infallible. Now, Prabhupada gave different, interesting meaning to these words. Fallible means we can fall. Krishna is infallible. Achyuta. Achyuta means fall, one who can fall. But Krishna is achyuta, means he can never fall under the control of the material energy. We can. Now, if you look up in the dictionary, infallible means never makes a mistake. So that's another, Krishna never makes a mistake. So in that sense, he's infallible. But this particular use is, I think, what's being referred to here. Now, this is an interesting concept because these words in English are absolute. Infallible means never, ever, ever makes a mistake. It's okay. But you need to set up on this side. So, yeah. And there's one more. Do we have any more stands? I don't know if you need a stand. There's a stand right next to you. Yeah, Gita and the stand. So the idea is that the absolute nature of those words in English is not quite reflected in the Sanskrit. Of course, it's reflected for Krishna. But our being fallible, this is describing the living entities here. From the infallible to the fallible. and back again to the infallible. How does that work? So Prabhupada has stretched the language a little bit. And it's reflected also in this phrase. You may have heard these Nitya Buddha, Nitya Mukta. Some of you are familiar with that phrase if you read Prabhupada's books. Nitya Buddha means what it sounds like, always bound, eternally bound up. And Nitya Mukta means eternally liberated. So there are more living entities in the spiritual world than there are in the material world. That's like 1/4, I believe, in the material world. But there's still a lot, who are in all the different material universes you can imagine. But there's living entities there who have never been in the material world and never will be in the material world. They're truly Nitya Mukta, eternally liberated. Or Nitya Siddha is called, eternally perfected. And we are here in this material world are called Nitya Buddha. That's one of these, eternally bound. Then what are we practicing Krishna consciousness for? If we're always going to be bound. So the point is that Nitya there, as Prabhupada explains, means since time immemorial. It's been so long, maybe 1 million lives of Brahma, who lives for what, 311 trillion, 40 billion years? I don't want to multiply it out either. But it's inconceivably long. So what's the point? We're virtually eternally here. But it is possible that, especially by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's made everything very simple in this age, chant Hare Krishna and everything flows from that. You actually can, from any position, you can go back to guided. This was Prabhupada's, he proved it by coming to the West, when nobody knew anything about anything. And he was, some will actually go back in one lifetime, but they're definitely making progress. So, the idea is that the Nitya Buddha can become Nitya Mukta, and some Nitya Muktas can fall down and become Nitya Buddhas. Similarly, the infallible can sometimes become fallible, and then the fallible can return to the infallible state. So that's what's being said here. There's two classes here: those who are in the spiritual world and those in the material world. And within the material world, we have that figure 8,400,000 species, right? And of course, that doesn't tell you how many individual ants there are, or how many human beings there are. There's just 7 billion on this planet, more than 7 billion now. So all of the living beings who have a material body is not natural for the soul. It's incompatible. We are by nature spiritual beings, Satchidananda. And that's our real nature. We have a Satchidananda form, which is now covered, we long forgotten. But it's in there. It's intrinsic to us. And that form is perfectly suited for us to engage in our particular individual rasa with Krishna. That's all buried under our conditioning. And unless we engage in the process of bhakti yoga, especially in this age, chanting the holy name and everything that flows from it, we can live another 100 million lives of Brahma and never have a clue about who we really are. Every time we get reincarnated into a new body, a new species, we identify with that. You can imagine what it's like. I think no one in this room is going to get a dog's body. We know that from the Bhagavad Gita. Even a little advancement on this path. Attending one Bhagavad Gita class, which I may say so much nonsense, but I'm always reading the purport, so it's perfect in that regard. You're getting pure sound vibration. So, neha brikkamanashosti pratyabhayo navidyate svalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bayat. This is a very encouraging verse in Bhagavad Gita. I forget the number in the 2nd chapter, but it's in there. He says, in this endeavor of Krishna consciousness, there's no destruction. Neha brikkamanasha. Nasha means destruction. No, there's not any destruction or even any diminution. Whatever you do in the way of Krishna consciousness is in your bank account. You may leave the association today and never see a devotee again in your life. But you've done a little chanting, you heard a little Bhagavad Gita, you saw the deities, definitely took some prasadam. That's all in your bank account. And in your next life, when the higher powers are deciding what our next body will be, well, he's got a little bhakti credits there. He's going to need a human form of life to keep going next life. And so we'll get a situation where we can, again, take it up, which is very encouraging, isn't it? Now, depending on what we do between now and when we leave our body, we'll have so many credits or, no more credits, but it can't be reduced. So, but still, because we're conditioned, we're identifying with our body, and not only the body, but as it changes in this very lifetime. I like to give the example when I was in Miami. Some of you may have heard this before, but many didn't. It was funny because, I didn't plan that I was going to go down here and live on the beach in Miami Beach. I mean, people spend their whole lives dreaming about, let's take a vacation and we'll spend 2 weeks on Miami Beach. So they had bought a building there, and that's where the press was. That's where they were putting out the Bhagavad Gita, and that's where I went, and I stayed there for 6 years. So they told me that they had just built a boardwalk, just like they have a walk here. Not exactly a boardwalk, some of it's a boardwalk. But they had built it at tremendous expense. I don't know, millions of dollars. So that people could, it would add to the attraction of Miami Beach and bring more tourists down. That's, it's always an investment. So anyway, there are also a lot of old people who retire there. And they would go and they would start walking on that boardwalk, and I would see them from my window sometimes, I would walk on there also. I wasn't so old then. It was also a destination for wealthy young people from the upper crust in Brazil. You'd fly up to Miami, and it's a different season. It would be cold. It would be winter down there. They come up for the summer, and it's mild because it's on the beach. So they would always see a crew of them, like 20, 30. And they would know each other sometimes. So they erected a volleyball net on the beach. And they would be playing volleyball, with their young, tan bodies and everything, And like 25 feet away, you'd have the old people barely making it along on the boardwalk. So I would see that and say, oh, here's a perfect lesson of the illusion of Maya's energy. Because when you're playing some sport or something, you're in the bodily concept even more. And these are, so they would see the old people, but it wasn't registering on them, oh my God, I'm going to be like that sometime too. Maybe I should find out what's going on in that Hare Krishna temple. Nothing like that. They would think, oh, thank God, I'm constitutionally 22 years old, young, rich. And these are, this is the way I felt. There are old people and there are young people. Luckily, I'm one of the young people. Complete illusion, right? And of course, obviously, I knew that I would one day get old. But it fits into that category of the most amazing thing. You may have heard this one before. There's a pastime in the Mahabharata where the Pandavas and Mother Kunti, they're out in the forest, in exile. And naturally, it's very austere. They got very thirsty. And they needed to get some water. So where's the water? Well, Yudhishthira is the leader. He sends out Arjuna to see if he can find some source of water. So he walked a little way, maybe a mile or two, and they found a beautiful pool of water, And he was very thirsty, so he was about to drink some, and his disembodied voice, that comes a lot in our literature. You read that. It's always something important. So he says, you cannot drink. This is my pool of water, my pond, until you answer my questions. Arjuna? Oh, he's a great warrior. He's not going to stop for that. So he takes a drink of water. He falls down unconscious. Right? Next, Arjuna doesn't come back. You just say, go see if you can find him, and find some water. So Bhima goes out. Same thing. He sees the water. He sees Arjuna. He says, oh my God, what happened? But he's so thirsty. He takes the voice says, you can't drink this water. It's mine. Bhima's not about to stop. So he drinks water. Boom, he falls in. So then he sends the twins out. The same's happened with the twins. So now Yudhishthira is alone with Kunti, what to do. So he goes, and he puts her in a safe place. And he sees, his 4 brothers are lying unconscious there. So he's about to drink some water because he's all very thirsty. And the omen says, you can't drink because it's my pond. You can't drink until you answer my questions. Now he's Dharmaraj. He never tells a lie, even when he should have told a lie. And Krishna told him to tell a lie. That pastime, we can tell him. And so he said, okay, I can't drink. Even if I die, it's not my water. I can't drink. So he starts answering these questions. They're all very interesting. But the one that is Prabhupada would tell, most prominent. What is the most amazing thing in this world? And he answers, Ahanyahani bhutani kachandihi amalayam sheshikstavanamichanti kimaschayam atakparam. Kimaschaya means what could be more wonderful than this? So what he says there is that day after day, now it's interesting, he's speaking to Yamaraj. He doesn't know it's Yamaraj, who's actually his actual father. Each of the Pandavas were born by different demigods. There's a whole story behind that. So, day by day, millions of souls are dying in human bodies, and they're being taken off to the abode of Yamaraj for judgment. And yet those who are left are living as if they'll live forever. Sheshik stavanamichanti. They think they have a firm position in this world. And we actually live like that. You know, we know people are dying all the time. Some people we know have died. But we're not thinking, well, gee, can I solve this problem? What's the solution? You know, maybe I should find out some spiritual solution. We're just thinking, oh, my friend died, but I have so much to do. You know, you get wrapped up in it. You know what I'm saying? So that's the way in which Maya covers us, is that she makes you forget in the modes of nature. You remember we had in the last chapter, in the last chapter we had the modes of nature, right? All the different ways, and the mode of passion, especially passion and ignorance, makes you forget the actual situation that you're in, and you get absorbed in what's happening right now, how I can plan for the near future, and all of the things related to your body. Remember we had in the morning class, Rishabhadev's teachings. When family life, materialistic family life develops, it's full of all kinds of things to absorb your mind, anxieties. You have to work so hard, make the money, what's happening to the kid. I need child care, otherwise I can't work. The way they've arranged things now, you have to have both the man and the woman working, right? If you're married. What happens to the kid? We have to get child care. That's a big expense. And are they being protected nicely? So much anxiety. You don't have time to think, what's the ultimate meaning of life? I'm heading toward death. It's just doesn't come up. So this is the situation we find ourselves. And Krishna is now enlightening us here and describing that there's a whole other realm of akshara. Akshara, where you're not changing. You're in your original identity. The body does not change. It's called your siddhadeya, or your sarup siddhi. Sarup, you have the rupa. Now, I don't know if you remember this, because this comes up in the second canto, 10th chapter. There's kind of a little table of contents of what's in the Bhagavatam. And the different topics. There's 10 different topics. And one of those topics is mukti. What is actual mukti, or liberation? That's dealt with in many places in the Bhagavatam. And so there's a nice little definition there of what mukti is. This is often quoted, Prabhupada would quote it. Mukti does not mean losing your individuality and merging into the white light and just being nirvishesha. Does it sound like a familiar word? Nirvishesha shunyavadi paschata desha tarine. Prabhupada is delivering the Western world, and the rest of the world too, from the grip of this philosophy that the ultimate goal is no differentiation, no individuality, just merging and just being conscious that you're conscious, and that's it. How wonderful it is. No death, no birth, no old age, no disease. Is that fulfilling? That's negative. Well, what is there to do? There's nothing to do. There's no bodies, there's nothing. No colors, no fragrances, no persons. That doesn't sound like a place you want to be, right? But it has the great advantage of no more death, no more birth, you see. So in Krishna consciousness, we don't want to just get rid of this body and be in a void or merge into the white light. We want to discover our original form, original body. And of course it starts with what you posit as what's the ultimate reality. The ultimate reality is not this Brahman effulgence. I had some exposure. I was saved by Krishna from to died in the womb Mayavadis. When I was coming back in 70, I think it was. There's a mission. Prabhupada wouldn't name them in his book, so I don't. There was a mission, and very famous. They've been around longer than we have in terms of in America, Started with a address in 1896, I think it was, in Chicago. So I would go there, and they were well established. They had a big hall. That's where I first heard lectures on the Bhagavad Gita and got attracted to the Bhagavad Gita, because many of the, you're just reading the verses of the Bhagavad Gita, and so it's pretty much the same. Anyway, I remember, this was very telling. I was chanting Hare Krishna, and that was kind of saving me. And this mission, one of their mottos was Yatamat Tatapat, which means whatever path you are attracted to, that's your path. So there was a bhakti section. It wasn't their favorite one, but that was if you're really into bhakti. They had books on that and everything. So I was investigating that, but I was also being influenced. I didn't know anything. So, but I was chanting Hare Krishna. I wanted to chant a round or two in a quiet place. I said, yes, up near the attic. We have a room there, and you'll find a nice little murti, they didn't use the word murti, a little statue of Krishna. So I went up there, and there was one of these, if you go to India, you'll see it by the thousands, this wonderful white statue, just Krishna alone, playing the flute, threefold bending form. So this is great, So I was chanting, and then I stopped. I finished a round, and I went to to see what was, the situation of this murti, and there was this much dust. They never cleaned up there, because their idea is that the worship of the form is a concocted form. The ultimate, it's not really the ultimate reality is impersonal, and the impersonal reality can appear in whatever form you want. You can imagine any form. Just it helps you meditate. You can see how subversive and destructive that is for any kind of bhakti. If you don't believe that Krishna is really out there, then what's the point? But we do, right? We have full faith. Why? Because of our acharyas. Because, yes, Bhagavad Gita, but it's given by Prabhupada, and Prabhupada is a powerful preacher. He had no doubts, and his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta, towering intellect, and the whole parampara. You think they'll also all be fooled? No. They have realizing Krishna. They're experiencing him directly. So anyway, in that impersonal situation, I had a friend, and he really kind of saved me, because he was the one who first took me to the temple. And I hadn't been to the Brooklyn Temple, And so he said he was a Ram Bhakta, and he loved to tell stories about Lord Ram. Now I was into Krishna, but I still love the stories. All the stories about him. So he would. Why don't we go down to the Brooklyn Temple? And so I said, okay, where is it? So he knew where it was. So I had a car. He had no car. So that's where we went down. But I had been so conditioned by this impersonalism that when I got there, the full kirtan, temple was rocking, full of devotees, and there was the deities, and with all the lights, and then afterward there were these fellows in orange carrying these huge plates of food, And I was trying to eat raw food, everything raw, so there was nothing there I could eat. I said, I can't eat any of that, And it was just too much detail, too much sights and sounds, But I was smart enough to buy a book, and I bought Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and it was a lot of philosophy, which I was into, and that's the book that kind of really kept me coming back. So I was saved. I had actually bought the Vedanta Sutra with the impersonal commentary of Shankaracharya. Now, what does Lord Chaitanya say about that? Do you know? Anyone who reads that, who hears the Mayavadi philosophy, is lost, is doomed. And here I had that time bomb in my home. If I read that book, my bhakti would be finished, right? I never read it. It wasn't that I made a decision. I just never got around to it before I joined up, and I threw the book away. But so Krishna is giving us this information here in this verse that in this world, in our identity, we're fallible. Means that we're temporary. The situation is temporary. And whatever time we have, we should cultivate toward understanding and developing our infallible nature. Coming from the definition of mukti. Now here's what I want to say. The definition of mukti is not that impersonal. What is the definition in the Bhagavatam? Muktir hitvanyata rupam swarupena vivastiti. Notice that word swarupena. Again, the word rup. Rupa means form, not formless. So mukti is defined as giving up all these other forms that we've inhabited, including this one, and all the ones we've inhabited in this birth, and being situated in our swarup. We're back to the swarup, your eternal form, a spiritual form composed of eternity, knowledge, and bliss, Satchidananda. How to do that? We can't just turn a switch or take a pill, Rather, we have to develop our consciousness, wean it away from this kind of reflexive material consciousness of trying to exploit matter for sense gratification, identifying with this body as us. This is difficult because we're so used to it. But that's the definition of bhakti. Sarvapadi vinimuktam tatpadatvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhakta ruchite. This is right in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, just a few verses from the famous Anyabilashita Sunya verse. He says, Sarva upadi vinu muktam. There's the word mukti again. Being free from the upadis, all of the upadis. Upadis are designations pertaining to the body. I'm black, I'm white, I'm old, I'm young. I belong to this family. I'm an American. You can't come in here. You're going to dilute our American. Just insanity. All of those upadis, we have to be free of them. Then who am I? Rishikena, Rishikesha Sevanam. With these senses, which are part of our body, serving the master of the senses. Linking our consciousness up through the activities of the mind, intelligence, and body to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And thinking, remembering the name, the form, the qualities, the pastimes of Krishna, more and more through the day. That's the class I gave on Monday in the morning, and that's the one I got. Forgive me, I check out Dandavats, and I was looking through. I saw this, I read this, and then I got to the home page. Wait a minute, it says this lecture, the Srimad Bhagavatam class by Dravida Dasa. Are you kidding? But I was wondering. I went through it. I started listening to it, and I was thinking, what was it about this class that was so different from the other classes that I. But the point is that we've been given by Lord Chaitanya's grace and his followers, especially Prabhupada, the opportunity to develop our awareness of Krishna and our eternal form in relation to Krishna. That's what actual bhakti is happening. And when we act in that relationship, that's where the bliss comes from. Krishna is giving it to you from within the heart. He's responding. There's a verse in Bhagavad Gita, some of you may know it. Ye yatamam papadyante, tam sataiva bhajamyaham. As they surrender to me, I will reward them accordingly. Krishna is always reciprocating exactly according to our mentality and our activity. So that's how we can come from the position of fallibility, fallen, to the position of infallibility, non-fallen. Okay, any discussion on this locally? Did you have something, Tyler?
They're both in the purport.
Keep it close.
Okay, both in the purport. I looked up the definition for Bhuta. It doesn't have it in the glossary, but we have Jiva Bhuta here. How is that different from Brahma Bhuta? One's a stage and one is what we are?
Yeah, when they are in contact with the material world, they're called Jiva Bhuta.
Okay. I've seen that word before in Brahma Bhuta. Is that Brahman realization, Brahma Bhuta stage?
Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma. Bhuta means, I think, a stage of consciousness. Brahma Bhuta means aware of Brahman. If you're on that Brahman platform, beyond the modes of nature, then there's certain characteristics. Prasanatma, you're very joyful and peaceful. You don't lament for anything, and you don't hanker for anything material. That means you can be equipoised. That famous equipoise. You can. Nashochiti nakanchiti samak sarveshu bhuteshu. Bhuta, you see other beings, both human and non-human, with an equal eye. You see the spiritual essence of everyone. You're not trying to, exploit this one and get away from that one. You see everything. And mad bhaktim labate param. In that state, you attain to real bhakti to me. Now, I always pair that verse with the second to last verse of the 14th chapter, where Krishna says, he's describing to Arjuna, you may recall, this is just the last chapter, how does one transcend the modes? At the end of the chapter, after hearing all these details about the symptoms of the modes, or here's someone in the mode of passion, they want to enjoy like anything, mode of ignorance, just want to sleep, again and again. Then near the end, Arjuna says, well, how can I recognize someone who has transcended the modes? What is the person's activities, and how does one get to be transcendental? The three-part question. So the end of it is, such an important thing. Well, how do we transcend the modes? Guess what? Practicing bhakti. Mam chiyo vyabhicharena, this is text 26 in the 14th chapter. Mam chiyo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sogunan samititatam brahma bhuyaya kalpate. There's brahma bhuya. So he's saying there that by unfailing, he used the word avyabhichari. Vyabhichari means flickering, comes and goes. Avyabhichari means steady, without failing in any circumstance. Bhakti to me, bhakti yogena sevate sogunan samititatam, that person transcends the modes of nature and comes to the state of Brahma Bhuta. You see? Now, here's the puzzle. Here in the 14th chapter, he's saying by practicing bhakti, you get to Brahma Bhuta. In the 18th chapter, it says by being on Brahma Bhuta, you get bhakti. Which comes first? The bhakti or the transcending the modes? So here's the solution. One speaks about bhakti yoga, and the other speaks about bhakti. There can be an important difference. Bhakti yoga is the process by which you get to the point of spontaneous bhakti. There's no, the gopis don't get up and say, oh, we got to chant our rounds now, What are you doing? You're still sleeping in Mangalarti. No, it's not like that. There's no sadhana up there. They're already there. There's sadhana and sadhya. Sadhya is the goal that you get. They're all in sadhya, you know what I mean? They've already achieved the goal. And so that's bhakti. That's the bhakti. Bhakti yoga can include all of our sadhana bhakti that we're doing. So that's what Krishna is saying in the 14th chapter. By practicing mamchua bebachan bhakti yogena sevate, he uses bhakti yogena. Saguna is Brahma Bhuya, you get to Brahma Bhuya. But if you're on Brahma Bhuya, then here's what's said, and then you'll actually attain spontaneous devotion. It's going from regulative devotion, sadhana bhakti, to bhava bhakti, prema bhakti, like that. So that's the conclusion there, is that Bhuta, Brahma Bhuta, Jiva Bhuta simply means your situation, your existence as a jiva, generally in this world, conditioned soul. Jiva Bhuta. When they're in contact with the material world, they're called Jiva Bhuta. So we want to be, get out of that state and go back to the spiritual nature. We won't be called Jiva Bhutas there in the spiritual world. We'll have our special names, and even they may be we may be cows, monkeys. Daniel,
dancing monkeys.
That's a private realization we found out there. That not in the spiritual world. Anyway.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Haribol Dhanavari, please ask your question.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Nice class. The last line in the translation, it says, they are always liberated in oneness.
In the purport, you mean, not the translation?
Yes. Oh, yeah, in the purport. Sorry.
Yeah. Brahman, all right. So they all exist in oneness, charak sarvani bhutani. Any living entity who has come in contact with matter, beginning from the first created being Brahma down to a small ant, is changing in its body. Therefore, they are all fallible. In the spiritual world, however, they are all always liberated in oneness. Not that they merge and lose their individuality. Oneness means oneness of purpose. Krishna's will is supreme. His desire. We don't have any cross desires. We're not. We don't feel that we have any independent things to enjoy or to achieve outside of Krishna consciousness. That's the oneness. That oneness can easily be misconstrued to think that we merge and we lose our individuality. No, not in bhakti. That's considered hellish. Kaivalya, it's known as kaivalya. This like merging into oneness and losing your individuality. That's called kaivalyam narakayati. For a bhakta, that's worse than going to hell. You'd rather be in actual hell, where you can at least chant Hare Krishna, maybe very desperately, but still be able to chant. But if you merge in oneness, you lose your individuality, you can't do anything. So Pramodananda Saraswati, in his famous verse, he says that's like going to hell, kaivalyanadakayati. Well, maybe we can go to heaven and enjoy. So Tridashapura Akasha Pushpayate. He says those heavens, of which there are 33 or 33 million, whatever, they're like sky flowers. In other words, they're imaginary. Who cares? You know, we know from that it's temporary, so we're not interested. Then there's the difficult to control senses. Durdantendriya means difficult to control, which are just like snakes. You know, poisonous snakes that'll bite your consciousness, pull you here, pull you there, like that. So here, the difficult to control senses have their fangs removed, so we can still use them in Krishna's service, but they won't bite us. In fact, they'll facilitate our service to Krishna. And what about what is it? Oh yeah, so the world, is all of these miseries in the world? No, Vishram Purna Sukhayate. The whole world is filled with happiness because you see Krishna's pastimes taking place everywhere. And the great demigods like Brahma and Shiva, we don't worship them separately from Krishna. For us, they don't have any more significance than insects in terms of that. You know, we respect them like that. Now, how do you get this qualification? Yet karunya kataksha vaibhavatam. One who has been empowered by the merciful sidelong glance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In other words, we get the favor of Lord Chaitanya by practicing Krishna consciousness nicely and trying to give Krishna consciousness to others. And all of these things will happen. We'll see. Does anyone in this room really, really ardently want liberation? Does anyone want to go and just, not take birth again? Saul, you have to leave. Once you're in a big kirtan, when you get a little taste for chanting Hare Krishna, you don't desire liberation apart from bhakti, right? So that's a great boon. Otherwise, liberation is just a symptom of wanting to get rid of the miseries in this world. If you're trying to, anyway, you had a question.
I just want to say, that was my second question, Donavari Mataji. Well done. I love when that happens. She asked exactly what I was going to ask.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. So, my question was, so it's kind of understood that at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjun attains liberation, right?
No. He's already liberated.
Like
he's reinstated in his actual position.
I see.
You have to understand that Arjun is intentionally covered by Krishna in this whole beginning of the Gita, where he's too much body conscious. His Bhishma Dev is there. He taught me, and all these cousins and brothers and everything.
Right.
He's covered over,
yeah.
and then he's paralyzed. He can't fight. He drops his bow, which is practically suicidal for a Kshatriya. So that's it. So he's freed from that misconception.
Okay.
But he's not. That's not. Liberation is not what he was after. He's situated nicely again in his position as a beloved friend of Krishna and ready to do his bidding, even though it's against everything that he was feeling, his gut reaction on the physical bodily plane. He's transcended that and said, if Krishna wants it, then it's ultimately for my good and everybody else's good, and I'm going to fight.
I see.
You see? So that's the thing. Now, along the way, he's liberated. See, liberation is a byproduct of devotional service. This Bilva Mangal Thakur, and we have to end here soon. He has this famous verse. I just heard Prabhupada quoted in a class this morning. Bhaktis tvahi stiratada bhagavan yadisyad daive nanak palati divya kishora murti mukti swayam mukulitanjali sevate sman dharmarta kama gata yaksamayak patiksha. So he's saying, this is near the end of the Karnamrita, he's saying, my dear Lord, if someone is situated firmly in pure devotion to you, bhaktis tvayi, unto you, stiratada, without deviation, O Bhagavan, then they get the fruit of that bhakti, which is not liberation. The fruit is a vision of your beautiful adolescent form. In other words, revelation from Krishna. He responds. And as far as Mukti is concerned, Mukti herself is standing by the door in the Anjali. Anjali, Pushpanjali. You've heard of the Pushpanjali. There's room in there. You can put stuff in there. Your heart, it's an offering. You put flowers. Whereas there's another form of holiness like this. It's closed. Please give me this, please give me that. Please, this is another kind of prayer. But devotees aren't making prayer like that. They're ready to offer. So mukti yourself is by the door, ready to, whatever you need in the way of mukti, it's there for you. And dharma, artha, and kama also waiting there. These are the other three of the four. Yeah, we need some kama. We need some, senses of the bliss. Okay, we got prasadam, And in one sense, the beauty of the deity is so fulfilling for the eyes. All of the senses are fulfilled. So we got dharma and artha and kama. Dharma, of course, we have. And we have to have some, household especially, got to have some money. That's provided. So you stop worrying about those, and all you're worrying about is, as Prabhupada said, what does Krishna have in his lunch bag? In other words, you're in the lila. That's what you're involved in. Anything else? Oh, Dimitri.
Yeah, just I understand why we fall down, but I don't understand how come there's so many jivas that fall down.
Fallen?
Yeah, it's probably trillions.
Yeah, pretty stupid, huh? It's I don't know if there is an answer to that question. One of the answers is you have to try to wrap your mind around, infinite time, time scales. We get a little bit of that with Brahma's lifetime, 311 trillion, 40 billion years. But then, oh my God, he's the smallest. He's the youngest Brahma. The universes emanate from Mahavishnu, on his out breath, and then in the in breath they all go in. So we come out last and we go in first. We're the smallest universe. And here's Brahma, he has only 4 heads. And he only lives 311 trillion, 40 billion years. So what about all the other Brahmas? There's so much time. It may be, every so often one living entity, is curious about the material world, turns away from Krishna and falls. But over infinite time, it accumulates. Accumulates to, uncounted trillions. But Prabhupada would say, what's the use of worrying about that? Yes, it's a little puzzling. But we should simply try as hard as we can to become qualified to re-enter and take as many people with us as we can. Don't worry about it.
I have another question.
Okay.
How does it become obvious to Krishna when we are about to fall down? And is there any help that might be offered to us? Like here in the
Prabhupada once said that Krishna was trying to convince us not to go, but we were so determined, we were so bewildered that we insisted on trying to, But the wonderful thing is that he never abandons us. We may feel like we're abandoned, but he's always with us in the heart. And there's always some plan to have a representative, or of course he comes periodically, that's kind of rare. But there's always some facility. And when we recognize that, we should jump on it, because we don't know how much time is left and how, the situation is. I mean, I don't, to me, one of the most wonderful things, almost as wonderful as what Yudhisthira, said. By the way, he answered all the questions correctly, and he was able to revive his brothers, and everyone got enough water, Yeah, happy ending. But the most wonderful thing to me is how this Kali Yuga is going to go on for another 427,000 years. I don't think how it can go on for another 400 years. The way things are deteriorating, it's just like we're going to need a direct intervention. Only by the miracles of the Sankirtan movement, we can cause a revolution, because otherwise it's just because I may not be around to see it. But so the thing is, don't waste any time. Do not waste any time. Chant Hare Krishna and kick out all of the Maya. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Haribol.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Haribol,
Very nice class. Thank you.
All right, we'll continue tomorrow with text 17. Thank you for coming, Michelle. I got your letters, your emails.